Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Vengreso Live. I'm Viveka von Rosen. And before we get started with our special guest, let me know in chat, where are you calling in from today? And say hello to me in your native language. I would love to see good morning, good afternoon, or good evening in your native language. So let us know in comments, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. What else are we on? Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I think that's it. Let us know in chat where you are coming in from today. We would love to see that. I am psyched because today we have a friend of mine who's also one smart cookie. She is Joanne Black. She is America's leading authority, the leading authority on referral selling. And what's interesting is, for those of you who've been following me or following Vengreso, you know we have a two-step referral method. It's online. Joanne and I might have a little discussion about that because as the leading authority in America on referral selling, she has some very clear ideas about what you should and should not be doing. But the reason you want to listen to today's today's interview is because Joanne ensures that sales leaders and their teams get meetings in one call. Think about that. If you're in sales or if you own your business, can you imagine getting that meeting in just one call and closing business well over 50% of the time? What would that do to your closing quota, right? She's the author, of course, of No More Cold Calling, the breakthrough system that will leave your competition in the dust and pick up the damn phone, how people, not technology, seal the deal. So thank you very much. Let's bring on Miss Joanne Black. Welcome to today's call.
Oh, Viv, it's such great fun to talk to you, and we have a lot to cover, don't we?
We really, really do. So, I think everyone knows that what we're going to cover today is the importance of referral selling for your sales strategy. And let's just dive right in. If you're not on LinkedIn right now, if you're on LinkedIn, obviously just go click over to Joanne and follow her. But if you're not, we've got her email, her LinkedIn address right here. So make sure that you follow Joanne. And let's just start with a basic question. What makes a good referral anyway? And is there a difference between a referral and an introduction?
My definition of a referral is you do get an introduction.
Good.
That's a little different than it used to be. People used to say, oh, call Viv, tell her I told you to call. Well, that works sometimes, but we've missed out on so much when we get the introduction. That's my definition. You get the introduction, you get the meeting.
The referral is the introduction. I think that's really important because a lot of people, to your point, and this drives me nuts, and I think we'll talk about this later. And this might be the reason you're not a fan of digital referrals or digital introductions is, hey, Joanne, I noticed that you're connected to a lot of CEOs. Could you introduce me to one?
Yeah, in fact, LinkedIn used to have a button that said, ask for a referral. Oh my gosh, that drove me up a tree. I was so glad when they took it away because people told me, this is their words, not mine.
Yeah.
When they got one of those, they were pissed.
Yeah.
Why? Because the person just assumed they'd introduce them. They had no relationship to them and they were totally annoyed and just forgot about it. It was rude.
It was right. Yeah. And that introduction feature, it was the worst because it would just be like, hey, Joanne. And then it would, I think the default languaging was like, hey, Joanne, can you introduce me? And then there would just be a link there. It wouldn't even say the person's name. So you'd get one of those. And it was so short and, to your point, rude. And maybe I didn't know the person. Maybe I didn't even know what that link was there for, right? It was a horrible feature. I'm with you, even though I love referrals and introductions, and I think they're crucial. I did not like that feature on LinkedIn. So,
well, and here's the thing, that we only refer people we trust to take care of our connection as we would. It's so personal, referrals, so why would I refer you? I don't know you.
Yes.
Makes no sense.
Thank you for saying that. I get not all the time because people just don't ask for enough referrals in my humble opinion, but I do get it. hey, Viv, can you introduce me to? And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. And why would I not only introduce, but I think referral takes it a next level. To your point, referral is about trust. It's about that, and if you don't even know the person, much less like and trust them, why in the world would you write a recommendation or an introduction for them? That I just, or pick up the phone and do it. So let's back up a little bit, because I know we're going to talk about that in a second. Why isn't everyone using and getting referrals?
What is it? Or
Why
why?
why aren't more salespeople, more sales teams? Why are referrals just not as? Why aren't people doing it more?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. And of course, it always starts with a sales leader.
Yeah.
And many of them have told me, oh, Joanne, I tell my people to go get referrals. And I'll say, well, if I know the person, I can be a little snarky, Viv. I'll say, well, how's
No,
that
not
working?
you.
How's that working for you?
Yeah.
Dead silence. It's not. When in the world have we just told people to go do something without any background, any skills, any strategy, and they've gone in and done it? It doesn't happen. It starts there.
Yeah.
And then it goes beyond that. You see, referrals, as I said, the most personal kind of selling. So a ton of what gets in the way, and the biggest reasons that we can't we can't do anything about until they learn and install referrals as a strategy, is it feels uncomfortable. Seasoned sales pros have told me, Joanne, I'm just not comfortable asking for referrals. So I had to
Yeah.
figure out why. Well, they've told me it feels pushy, aggressive, like the used car salesman.
Right.
It feels like, oh goodness, what if they say no? I mean, really, we're putting our reputation on the line. What if they say no? It feels desperate, because after all, if I were really successful, I wouldn't have to ask, would I? All of that, those are perceptions, and they're
Wow.
real. And so
Yeah.
we get in the way.
There's a real, I'm getting a little feedback here. There's a real psychology, I think, behind referrals, now that you bring it up, because, never mind the psychology behind selling. Referrals, to your point, are just that much closer to who you are. Like, it's one thing if you ask for a meeting, ask for a sales meeting and someone says no. It's like, okay, they don't need our product, they don't need our service. But like, would you introduce me to someone, or make a referral for me? And then the no, it's like, oh, ow. I get that. Now, how do you work around that? Like, what do you do with sales teams to help them get over that fear of no?
I said it starts with a sales leader, and it does.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to put a stake in the ground and say, we are going to adopt referral selling as our number one outbound prospecting approach. Okay, that freaks people out when I say that, because they think, oh my goodness, that's all we're going to do. Well, that's
Yeah.
not the case. All right, we still have social media, we have our emails, we have podcasts, we have our website, we have our white papers, we have webinars, we have everything we're doing. The difference is, instead of referrals happening, well, once in a while when we think of it, and maybe we get some, maybe, this
Yeah.
is proactive, intentional, it's measured. People have built skills, it's a strategy, they're accountable, and that's what makes the difference. So telling doesn't work.
So can you give us some of your, obviously we don't want you to share everything that you do. I'm getting a little feedback. But what are some ways, working with the sales leader and then with the sales team, like, give us one tip, one thing that you do with them in order to kind of get to that next level? What are some of the, what are some of the skills that they need?
The skills are one piece, and there's others as well. We can talk
Yeah.
about that. But the skill is, the people will ask you, well, what do you do? And all we do is spout off all the great things we do. And no
Right.
one cares. When we ask for a referral, we need to educate the person who's introducing us on the business reason for the
Yes.
introduction. Because I'm going to introduce you, Viv,
Yeah.
because there's a business reason. I won't
Yeah.
introduce you because unless I know you're a good person and you'll take
Right.
care of it. But there has to be a business reason. So what's the
Yeah.
problem? And so
Yeah.
we, number one, have to articulate the problem. And it's a real trap when people say, what do? We just go into our script instead of giving a client example. And
Yeah.
that's the first thing. It's the cornerstone of the program. Because
Ah,
I'm only going to refer you for two reasons. One, if there's a good business reason. And two, who do you want to meet?
yeah.
And so I need to know your ideal client profile. And this is old news, people think, because, oh, yeah, we all have an ICP,
Right.
but it needs to be sliced really, really thin. And this is what's counterintuitive and a tip for everyone. We tend to think that if we don't talk about all the people that we'd like to meet, that we leave something out, and that is not
Right.
the case. So think about this. If I asked you for a referral and I said, Viv, it could be anyone. Well, they could be a sales leader, it could be a CEO, it could be a director of sales. It could really be in any industry, and it could be anywhere in the world. Well, I think you pretty much get lost.
No kidding.
But we're hesitant to say is the best introduction would be to a sales leader in a company of 500 plus employees with a head sales leader who is open to new ideas, who has a problem with getting enough qualified leads in the pipe. And I can go on from there, but you
Right.
see the difference. And we're so afraid of being really specific that, oh my gosh, if I leave something out, they won't think of anybody. But what we've done in the former, we've confused people.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
They want to make a good introduction. This has been my experience. People want to put good people together. They're glad to do it. They just don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I'm so glad you said that, because it goes back to the, hey, can you introduce me to someone in HR? I mean, that's you're never gonna get the right person if it's someone in HR. Excuse me. And you're never going to get the first of all, the person's probably not going to introduce you to anyone because you want them to introduce you to everyone. And then, that you're going to get the wrong person. But to your point, your ICP or your buyer persona, you've got to be so clear on that. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but do you find that there's sometimes some hesitation to ask for the referral because the salesperson doesn't believe in themselves or their company or their product or their service enough?
I haven't found that. That's very
Really? Okay.
possible. It's very possible, but I think that would be rare. It's the discomfort in asking. It's also, here's the thing, it's their belief that, oh, what if I ask and they won't, and they say no, or it
Yeah.
feels like it's pushy. Or
Yeah.
here's one I get. It's, it's like asking for a favor, and I don't want to do that. And I want to explain where the favor is. It is a favor, but it's not to the salesperson. The favor is the person they're being introduced to. Because Viv, if I refer you to someone you want to meet and I introduce you, that person who has a relationship with me is so relieved. Oh my gosh, look at all the time you save them in finding the great resource. The favor is to your prospect.
That is a great way of framing it, so that, yeah, that would definitely get you over that hesitation. You're doing your prospect a favor.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that kind of answers this question: what's missing for sales organizations today? It's that shift in thinking. Is there anything else around referrals that's missing in sales organizations today?
How much time do you have? No.
We have 17 more minutes.
Okay. So a couple of years ago, I had clients come to me and said, Joanne, I really would like you to help us build a referral culture.
Yeah.
And I've always done that, but I never wanted to use that big word. And here's why. I worked for a couple consulting and training firms. And the last one I worked for did a lot of culture work, change management work.
Yeah.
It took forever and it cost millions of dollars. So that's how I translated culture. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get to do that. Then I found this definition. Culture's what happens when people aren't looking. Think
Yes.
about it, right?
Yeah.
It becomes our DNA. So referrals become the way we work. And everybody in our organization knows people. Obviously, the sales team, but customer success knows people, other employees knows people. And so that's really been the shift in what's happening. And so we need to start with our sales leaders and sales teams, of course, but then it's important to think and move on. How do we roll this out so that we can get referrals from a lot of people in our organization?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so what are, and again, we've only got 15 minutes left, but what's one or two acts that a company can take to move towards that referral culture?
The first is to actually put a stake in the ground and say, this is the way we're going to work, and
Nice.
communicate that to everybody. Because, the lack today of communication is rampant.
Yeah.
Oh, really? How does that apply to me? Right.
Right.
And so it's the what's in it for you. And the sales leader just says that. Now, here's what's shifted is that I've had my company almost 25 years.
Wow.
Hard to get that out. But it used to be that you had to explain to people why referrals are great. Today they know that.
Yeah.
And so what you can ask any sales leader, ask them to ask their teams, how are we doing with referrals? The answer will be practically nothing.
Right.
So it starts there. They know that referrals are the best business. And now the sales leader can reinforce, we know this, and this is how it's going to shift for our organization so that we get only qualified leads in the pipe. And for the salespeople, this is an important one. You will spend less time prospecting. And, for me, I think the reason I love what I do, and this is for everybody, I'm only talking to people who want to talk to me.
That's right.
Right? That's
No
so
more
amazing.
cold calling. I mean, that is the name of your first book. No more cold calling.
Yeah, and I get pushback on that, and that's fine. But I'm not going to eradicate it from the face of the earth. I understand that.
Right.
My goal is to have referrals work more and more as their primary outbound prospecting strategy, so all these great things can happen.
Yeah.
So their salespeople spend less time prospecting. They get every meeting in one call. The conversion rate is, you said 50%? That's average. Most people tell me it's 70% plus.
Wow.
And it becomes the way we work. And so the communication is key. That's the first thing a sales leader needs to do. And when I work with sales leaders, the first thing we do is we talk about a strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a salesperson. I don't want binders. I don't want pages.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's just, what is the outcome you want? And let's write it down. What will make this program successful for you? And it could be X number of new logos, qualified leads in the pipe, shortened time to close. Obviously, there's a revenue number,
Yeah.
but all of that. And then how are we going to implement the strategy? Well, first, we're going to set metrics.
Yeah.
We're going to set activity metrics around referrals, right? And we're going to decide who needs to build skills, how are we going to reinforce it, and who needs and accountability, because that's huge.
Yes.
Right. So it's not a long, complicated conversation. It happens very quickly.
Yep.
Because the commitment is there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, question for you, because, obviously sales leaders, does the referral culture spread out beyond sales into marketing, into CS, or, I mean, is there a way of bringing in the entire company, or is it really just in the sales team?
It used to start exclusively with the sales team.
Yeah.
But in the last 2 years, I've had clients enroll customer success. And right, because obviously they have day-to-day connections with their clients. And the first time that happened, and I was getting these emails from customer success people saying, I'm super excited. I'm thinking to myself, huh? I mean,
They're into it.
right? You didn't want to sell. But here's the thing. The expectation is they will ask their client for an introduction,
Yeah.
and then they will stay and broker that introduction with the salesperson.
Yes.
And that's a really important point because referrals are so personal. So if you're in customer success web and you get an introduction, you can't just send it to me, a salesperson, and say, hey, take it.
No, you gotta make that. Yeah, you gotta bridge that gap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's been a shift in the last couple of years. And then I have one client who did that and then continued to roll it out in stages to other parts of the organization.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so Bernie, Wendy, Jesse, are you listening? We're going to expect more of those referrals. Well, and it's interesting you say that because I don't think we consciously do it, but yeah, when our CS team is engaging with the client, I think the conversation is starting to come down, but not in we don't have a methodology in place. So maybe we should talk to you about that for our CS team too. But that's very interesting. And let's face it, the CS team usually has more contact with the buyer, after the purchase is made, right? After the purchase is made, unless you're an account manager really managing that client 24/7, you're kind of like, okay, thanks, next. Who am I going to sell next?
Yeah, here's the
Right?
gap. The
Yeah, there's
gap
huge
today
gap.
is really in companies that it's up to the individual salesperson to build a relationship with a customer success person
Yeah.
because that person knows, oh, they left, they went to this other company, or these are their
Yeah.
issues, right? And
Right.
that's left up to the individual to make that happen. At least that's been my experience. It could be different, but wouldn't it be great if companies had a process
Mm.
for that exchange of information back and
Yes.
forth on a regular basis?
Yes. I noticed that Adam Ligaraldi is on our call today. Hello, Adam. And we've actually had him as a guest before because he is possibly one of the best social sellers out there. And I know with him, he's with the client. It's not just, or with the prospect, it's not just to the close, but long after the close, he is consistently feeding them information and creating those relationships. And I'm sure that leads to more sales. Let us know in comments, Adam. But yeah, it is so important, I think, for our salespeople to continue the relationship as well as the CS people in order to get those referrals. Now, 2020 was what, and I think it's more important. Referrals are even more important, now because of pandemic and everything that's happened. What's your take on that? What have you seen with asking for, giving, and just that whole referral culture during pandemic?
Who are people going to talk to
Mm,
in a down economy? They're always going to talk to people who've been introduced, always.
yeah.
And actually, the last 6 months of last year, my business was booming because
I bet.
people knew. So here's the shift from like 20 years ago. They knew that referrals were their ticket and
Yeah.
they weren't doing it.
Yeah.
And so now we're building on that and adopting referrals in a way we never did before.
Yeah.
So I see this year as a year to make huge progress because when we make so many great relationships, we have them and we're just letting them sit there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, trust. I mean, we lost a lot of trust in a lot of things last year. And I think that know, like, and trust, that trust piece is absolutely key, which is why I know, and we differ a little bit in this, but we can deep dive a little bit more. You're not a big fan of asking for referrals in a digital format. And we teach how to ask a referral in a digital format, but I don't think we're that far off. So tell me a little bit about why, and I think it has to do with trust. Tell me a little bit about why you are not a big fan of referrals in digital format, i.e. through LinkedIn.
Yeah, and it's okay if we disagree. I'm fine with that because everybody has a different perspective.
Exactly.
Here's why. As I said, it's okay to ask if you know the person.
Yeah.
On email or LinkedIn, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But when you ask for an introduction, you must have a conversation, and here's why. The person who you want to introduce you has all this intel about your prospect. And so you have the opportunity to ask that person questions. What's this person like? What's the problem? What would I say that would resonate with her?
Yeah.
Why would you make the introduction now? All of these questions, and you learn things that, people only put on their LinkedIn profile what we want everybody to know. I mean, there's so many things. There was one time that I was introduced to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Okay, that's another story for another time. But I went to the person who introduced me, and I knew him very well. I said, tell me about him. Well, he spent 15 minutes telling me about this guy, and he was a big man. He used to be a bouncer, and all this stuff. Sometimes you need to know, but it's just you get that background you can pull into your conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll say, well, so and so has told me so much about you, and then what is it? And then you have a chance to do that. So you come in as a trusted resource, and you mentioned trust. So here's what happens. That if I introduce you to one of my connections, we have a strong relationship and strong trust. The trust that person has for me transfers to you. So you arrive, you're already trusted, and that is the hardest thing to gain. And the research shows that only about 18% of buyers trust salespeople. So that's what happens. The trust is automatic because
I love that transfer of trust.
Yes.
It is a transfer of trust without, having to spend 5 years building the relationship.
That's right.
That's super powerful. I hope everyone's getting how powerful that is. We use it all the time, right? Transfer of trust. We use that term a lot, but it's super powerful. It's super time saving. And it's super, super powerful, especially when it comes to, converting that prospect into a client.
And you have a different kind of conversation.
Yeah.
It's not who are you and you have 12 minutes. It's how do you know so-and-so? And you just it's like your friends already. That's been my experience.
Yes, exactly. Well, and especially if there's someone that you like who's doing the introducing because you like them, I'll probably like you too. I'm thinking about, it's funny. We teach that 2-step referral method. You could just, it's on, we can find it and pop it into the chat if you want to learn what that is. And it's super effective, but you're right. When you have a live person actually introducing you, and I'm thinking yesterday through a text, it's still digital, but it's still kind of personal. My friend Sue introduced me to her new friend, Asa, who normally, who's an ideal prospect for us, absolutely ideal prospect for us. And normally, our sales team would have gone on and they probably, would have asked to be introduced, and they might not have chosen Sue. They might have chosen one of 16 other people that we have in common, because Sue doesn't have to be connected with her on LinkedIn yet. And, we may or may have not have gotten, even to the connecting on LinkedIn, but through that one text, I've already got a meeting set up with Asa, even though I'm not in sales. So I have to pull in one of my salespeople. But there was that, to your point, there was that transfer of trust through one single text message, but it was from someone that we both know, like, and trust explicitly. And so that connection has been made. That's very powerful. Right. Yeah.
It is.
So is it okay that she did it through a text?
If she made the introduction through it, you can make the introduction different ways.
Okay.
Of course, some people do in videos, some people do in email, but the way I do it is I've had the conversation with the person who's going to introduce me, And I find out all about my prospect. And the person who's introducing me then sends an email, because the best way is that they talk to the person first. That doesn't always happen, but it's great if they do. Sends an email and says, I want you to talk to Joanne Black, and here's why. Well, you both know each other. I've already sent the LinkedIn profiles, and I'll, have time to talk. And that's what I do. And when I get an email like that, here's my response. It's so simple. I write back and say, oh, it was great of Viveka to introduce us. Let's set up a time to talk.
Yep.
Right. And I either send them 3 options, or very nicely say, in order to avoid a lot of back and forth, you can grab time on my calendar here. I mean, and there, it's done. It's it.
It's done. It's done. Yeah, I love that. And the next thing and we're at time. So we'll have another conversation about this another time. I think it's so important on the other end to create such a strong brand, because obviously if someone wants to know about referrals and how to do them right, Joanne Black is the first thing that pops into your head, right? If you want to talk about LinkedIn, hopefully I'm one of the first names that pop into your head. So that whole branding and creating such a strong brand around your area of expertise is key when it comes to staying top of mind and getting those referrals. And that's a whole other conversation. We are at time. Are there any last words that you would like to share with our audience before we sign off today?
Well, very quickly, your clients are your best source of new business. And if you haven't asked them for a referral, now's the time to make a list of those the best, the people know the best, and make that first, so that you will begin to think about, are these people I could actually ask?
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Joanne Black. Make sure to get her book. Make sure to reach out to Joanne with any questions you have about referral selling, referral culture. We didn't even get into this, but that is probably where your highest value revenue stream are, in your referrals. I'm guessing that's the answer there. Make sure to connect with Joanne. We're not here next week, but the following week, we're going to be with our mutual friend, Doug Layman's Terms. So let's get together in a few weeks, everybody. It's our SKO next week. Hey, Paula, how you doing? Thank you again, Joanne. You are the bomb. I can't wait till we can actually see each other in real life again and give each other a hug.
That would be great. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.